Hello, I am Sandeep, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology of MLR Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. So, in previous discussion, we discussed about what is an instance variable and how can we declare that instance variables, how can we access the instance variables, how can we delete that instance variables from the object. So, that instance variables is nothing but if the value of an variable is varied from object to object, then that type of variables is called instance variables. And we can declare that instance variables inside the constructor, inside the instance method, whenever by using self keyword. And we can also declare that instance variables from outside of the class using object reference variable. Next, we can access. How can we access the instance variables? Means we can access the instance variables using self keyword within the class, and if you want to access the instance variables from outside of the class, then use the object reference variable. And also we have one method, that is get attribute method. By using that get attribute method, we can also access the instance variables, right? So this is the thing what we discussed in previously. Today we are going to discuss the static variables and how to access the static variables, how to modify the static variables, and how to delete the static variables. So this is the thing, right? First, what is the static variable? If the value of a variable is not varied from object to object, then such a type of variables is called static variables. See, for example, this is T1 object and this is the T2 object. Here the static variable a equals to 10, and here also the static variable a equals to 10. So that means that in T1 object the static variable will a value is 10, and here the static variable is also 10. That means that object to object that variable value is not differ. That object to object that variable value is not differ, then that type of variable is called static variables. Okay, na? That type of variables is called static variables, and these static variables we can declare we can declare directly within the class but outside of that methods. That may be a constructor or that may be an instance method. That means we can declare a static variable within the class directly but outside of the constructor or outside of the instance method. So such a type of variables are called static variables, right? So next, for total class, only one copy of the static variable will be created. That means here that that's why that object to object that static variables values is not differ. That object to object the static variables values is not differ. Why? Because for total class or for entire class, that only one copy will be maintained for the static variables, and that values will be shared by the all objects of that class. That means that copy will be shared by this T1 object and by this T2 object. That's why this object contain the same variable, same value, and this object contain the same value of the static variable. Next, we can access the static variables either by using class name or by using object reference name, right? So now here see an example for this statement. There is a class and this is the static variable. How can we say this is the static variable? Means because of we declare this variable directly within the class, right? Directly within the class but outside of the constructor. Now see, and this is the what? Instance variable. Now two objects are created. How many objects are created? Two objects are created, that is T1 object and T2 object. Now by using T1, first I am going to print that values, right? And then, right, see, first let me see an example. So class test a equals to 10. Now def double underscore in it double underscore self. Now self dot b equals to 20. Now I'm going to create two objects, right? T2 equals to test. Now I'm going to print T1 dot A and T1 dot B. Similarly, I'm going to print by using the T2 object and T2 dot B. Now I save this program. Now I'm going to run this one. What will be happen? So 10, 20, right? So 10, 20. For example, I'm going to change the values of the variable by using, right, for this class, for this static variable as well as instance variable, right? But here we have to observe. Now by using class, I'm going to change the value of static variable, and by using T1 object, here specifically we have to changing the instance variable value by using T1 object. Now T1 dot B equals to 200. Now print T1 dot A and T1 dot B. Next print T2 dot A, T2 dot B. Now see, I will run this program. What happened? See, firstly 100, this is what, this is in static variable, and this is the static instance variable, and this is the static variable. For both objects will be same, but whenever I change the value, see, the static variable is 100 and here the instance variable is 200, and here the static variable is 100 only, but instance variable is what, 20. So means what? See, object to object, what will be happen? Instance variables is varied, but object to object, what is happening here? That static variable value is same, that is 100, 100. But here object to object, that instance variable is different. So that is the about static variables. That means the variables which is not varied, the variable values which is not varied from object to object, then such a type of variables is called static variables. Next, how can we declare the static variables? Generally, we can declare within the class directly from outside of the any method. Just now we seen that example, right? Next, if you want to declare inside the constructor, then you can declare by using class name. Next, if you want to declare inside the instance method, we can also here use the class name. Next, if you want to declare that inside class method, then either you can use the CLS variable or class name. If you want to declare that static variable inside a static method, then you can declare by using class name, right? So by using the class name. So anyway, here commonly we are going to say what? Class name. That's why this static variables is also known as class level variables, and instance variables is also known as object level variables, right? Now see, how can we access the static variables inside the constructor? By using either self or class name, and inside the instance method by using either self or class name, and inside the class method you can use either CLS variable or class name, and inside the static method by using class name. From outside of the class by using either object reference or class name. But what is the recommendation? From anywhere to access the static variable is class name. From anywhere you can access the static variables by using the class name. So this is the example. So this is the static variable, and this is the static variable which is defined inside the constructor. Next, this is the static variable which is defined inside the instance method, that is M1, and this is the class variable, that is M2. So by in that M2 we can define that that is the class method, right? So into that class method we can declare the instance or static variables either by using the class name or by using the CLS variable. Next, this is the static method. M3 is the static method. Inside the static method you can declare that static variable using class name, right? So let me throw an example. So class test A equals to 10. Now def double underscore in it double underscore self. So inside the constructor you can define a static variable using what? Class name. Now print test dot b. Okay, now print test dot b. See here. Yes, you can also access the self dot b or test dot b. Right? See here that anyway you can also access that variable b by using class name, or you can also do that. Next m1 method. So self. So inside the constructor also we can declare the static variable using class name. Right? Now print self dot c. Next at the rate class method. Now def m2 and cls variable should be first parameter in the class method. Now cls variable we can use our cls variable or by using the class name also we can define. Right? Now print cls dot d. Next print test dot e. Next static method. Right? Now see def m3. Now test dot f equals to 60. Now print. Okay, now so test dot f. Now I'm going to create an object. Now first whenever an object is created, so here I will write the print statement. So print. Okay, here already I wrote. Right. Now t dot m1 method. So whenever an object is executed, then these two statements will be executed. Next, whenever m1 method is called, next here these statements will be executed. Now how can we call that m2 method? Means by using class name, and also by using class name m3 method also we can call. See. Okay. Now first what happened? 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. For example, if you want to access the variable a, either by using object reference variable or by using class name. See 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 10, 10. Because of here that variable a, that is static variable, we are accessing by using object reference variable and by using the class name. So in this way we can declare the static variables as well as we can access the static variables, right? Inside the constructor, inside the instance method, inside the static method, inside the class method, and inside the class, but outside of the methods, right? So all the things is in one program, right? Next, we can also modify the static variables, right? See, how can we modify the static variables? If you want to modify the static variables within the class or outside of the class, only one thing, that is using the class name. Except if you are going to modify the static variable inside the class method, then use the CLS variable. Okay, now? So let me write a program. So class test. Now a equals to 10. Now def m1 self. So test at, I want to modify, see, for example 100. Now print self dot a. See here what happened, that instance variable is modified where inside the instance method. Now at the rate class method, okay no? So def m2 cls. Now cls dot a equals to 200, then print cls dot a. Here what happened, that instance variable a is modified, but here which keyword we are going to use? cls. For example, it is the static method, right? Static method. Now def m3, so no need to pass any value. Now test dot a equals to, for example, 300, and then print test dot a. Okay, now test dot m1 method, next test dot m2 method, next test dot m3 method. So all we can access but except instance method. So for instance method we have to create an object. So t dot m1 method. Now see what happened, values are modified or not. Initially the static variable value is a. So inside the instance method, how can we modify that instance, that is static variables? By using class name. How can we modify that static variable value inside the class method? Using cls variable or using cls keyword. Next, how can we modify that static variable inside static method? By using class name. And if you want to modify the value from outside of the class, then use class name, for example 1000. Now print test dot a. Now see here also the value is same 1000. So in this way we can modify the values of static variables. Okay, so that is what modifying the static variables. Now we can also delete the static variables. How can we delete the static variables? So previously we seen in the whatever that deleting that instance variables of instance variables. How can we delete that instance variables? By using del keyword. Similarly here also we can delete that static variables by using del keyword, right? So let me see an example. So class test a equals to 10, a equals to 10. Okay, now see def, otherwise we'll do. So test dot, so printing print test dot a. Okay, now see 10 value will be printed. Now I will delete that test dot a, and I'm going, after deleting I will try to access that variable. Now see what will be happen. So first the value will is printed, but after deleting if I'm going to try to access, what will be happen? The type object test has no attribute a. That means that there is no attribute a for the test class. So it's showing that error. When after deleting the that attribute, if I'm going to try to access which attribute here, that means which variable here? Static variable, right? Next, in another way also we can delete. That is inside, if you want to delete that static variable inside the class method, then you can use the cls variable, that is del cls dot variable name, for example del cls dot a. Like that one you can delete the static variable inside the class method, right? So finally if you are going to try change the class variables, the class variables is nothing but what? Static variables. By using object, then a new instance variable is created for that particular object, right? So that means if you are going to try to change the class variables by using object, not by using the class name. Okay, if you are trying to change the value of the static variable by using object, not by using the class name, right? Generally we are going to change the static variables by using class name, but if you are going try to change the right by using that object, then what will be happen? A new instance variable will be created. That means now it will become what? An instance variable. Now it will become what? A new, that means it will become an instance variable to this object. Which object? T object. So that is the important statement here. Next, a class variable is a variable that is declared inside of a class but outside of any instance method or init method. Init method means what? Constructor. And these variable value will be shared by all the objects of that class, and for all the objects only one copy will be maintained for the static variable. So this is about what? Static variable, right? Next we will discuss about another type of the variable. Thank you.